it may not be in education, but they have it in a degree related to their position.
PTAs as well.
Yeah. And so I think that's the only other difference with the, that's not in the ESP one. And I do have to ask for the underpayments with the off-cycle checks, because that was new too. I know AFSCME had an issue with that last year, but we could also potentially have an issue with the off-cycles as well. And so if they, there will be nobody will be eligible for off-cycle checks with semi-monthly except in the event of an employer error. In this case, the employee shall be made whole immediately. And so that was the addition that we had saw from our AFSCME counterparts, but could potentially be an issue. And we knew that, working through this first year or so with the payroll frequency changing, that we would potentially run into some issues that, we weren't thinking about. And so we wanted to have an opportunity here to address some of those issues that we did run into.
We are currently taking care of issues on off cycles, but
Okay.
I would request that it would be on the next scheduled off cycle, because saying that it is, we already have a predetermined schedule for our off cycle checks.
So what would that look like then, Heather? Laura, can you go to 1917?
Let me find I'll give you an example. Let me find the payroll calendar.
So could we change, so Laura has the language up that we have. So could we change, in the case the employee shall be made whole on the next off-cycle pay run? Would that be appropriate?
Yes.
So in this case, the employee shall be made whole on the next off-cycle payroll run. Shush. So Laura, I can't type. Do we want to change this now?
Just a second.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Internally, thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Hey, Stephanie, it's Fred. I just want to make sure we heard you correctly. Obviously we don't have the ability to cut a check immediately to somebody. You're comfortable with just in their next payroll period?
So I would say if I heard Heather correctly, that they already have a schedule to run off-cycle checks.
Right.
So if that's the case, then I think we would be fine with, in this case, the employee shall be made whole at the next off-cycle payroll run. And I don't know if that's exactly what it's called, but that's what I heard from Heather.
Okay, that works.
Okay. So if you already have an off-cycle payroll that you run, then we would be agreeable to that. We just didn't want them to wait, at their next, if we were running an off-cycle check before their next payroll run, that they could have the opportunity to have it quicker, on an employer error. So Laura, can we make this same change in Article 15? 1515. Okay.
Hey, Stephanie.
Yeah. Hey, Fred.
What if the check is ridiculously small? So what if it's less than $50? Do you still want us to cut a check? Like, can we establish a threshold, a minimum threshold?
Well,
So
I
to
think though
justify an
for,
off-cycle check versus just putting it in their next paycheck?
I think for when you're talking about different employee positions though, like $50 to a bus driver or a para or an ESP is a lot different than $50 to a teacher. And even our
Right.
teachers that are single teachers struggle, right? So $50, you know,
But it could be $15. I mean, that's the point is, does it make sense to cut an off-cycle check versus just cutting them, including it in their next paycheck?
And to your point, Mr. Hyde, some of those mistakes are 56 cents.
mm.
You guys
So
want
what
to talk? You guys
so
want
what
to talk for a minute and
do
see
you
what?
think maybe would be an agreeable threshold then? Because I still think 50 is kind of high, especially for our support staff. I mean, if it's less than $15, I'm just throwing out a number.
Hello, you guys there?
40?
Yeah,
Hang on a second, Seven. I want to hear this.
go ahead. See, I mean, I guess it's kind of arbitrary.
What
I
number
even
does
think $40 is
But what number
not,
does the? Well, I'm sorry, Stephanie. What number does the employer propose?
I think I heard Heather say 40
We had said 50.
We
or
rejected
50, and then I said 50
Too
was,
high. So where are we going with this? What do you guys?
49.
Ha, there we go.
$49.99.
There you go. $49.99 on sale.
It's just it's to your point. What's the low number, right? Is it $30?
Yeah, I think the issue we're experiencing on our end is that, you know, we hear you, but sometimes it would be nice to hear your team propose something, or you know, or counter, or come up with, you know, outside of, once we, you know, because 50 for some of our folks is high. So
Yeah, just like I
can we
said,
get
is 30
can we get beyond?
is 30 a reasonable number? What's an hourly rate for a para? What's the hourly rate?
$11
$11
minimum
an hour.
now.
$11 for 3 hours,
Yeah.
basically. And this is only for our errors, not an employee reported error.
yes, this is for employer errors.
Doesn't affect our existing language for under overpayments.
Yeah. So this is really for an employer error.
All right, give us a second. Jason's calling payroll to kind of find out,
Okay,
you know, from an efficiency standpoint, what makes sense to cut.
okay.
We're muting.
Okay. So then just looking at here, so we're getting clarification on the underpayments for the 1917 and 1515, but then we're good with the payroll frequency. Are you, so Heather, are you okay? Is your team okay with the 1913 adding in or degree related to position?
Stephanie, we're caucusing. If you could hold a moment,
Oh.
please. Thank you. That's
I
all
thought
right.
they were
That
calling.
is-
I thought we were
That's
still
all right.
going.
Yeah, we're all
Sorry.
caucusing. Thanks. That's fine.
Hello?
Hey, they're caucusing.
Not a problem, just wanted to make sure I didn't lock.
Okay. So for those of you that are live streamed right now, we are waiting. The district is caucusing on para Article 19 and ESP Article 15. So hold tight. For those of you that are still watching, we are still caucusing. The district is still caucusing, I should say. We are waiting for them to come back with something that may be agreeable to them for Article 19 for the para and Article 15 for ESP with some of the payroll frequency issues. So that's what we're waiting on. So hopefully we will be back soon and we can hopefully get para and ESP contracts wrapped up outside of the health insurance, which we'll bargain next week with AFSCME.
Can you say again the next bargaining date?
We know that we will, if we don't finish up here today, we'll be back August 25th in the afternoon. But if we finish up today, we'll be going to subcommittee for the TSIA money. The joint bargaining session with AFSCME for healthcare will be Thursday, August 26th at 5 p.m.
The district is returning from caucus. Thank you for your patience.
One district just made a really interesting argument.
All right. Hey, guys, welcome back.
All right, we have a discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Pitts.
Hey, Stephanie, it's Jason.
Hey, Jason.
We just have had several, I mean, we've had discussions here and especially with payroll on this. You know, back when we went to the semi-monthly pay a year ago, we had explained the difficulty in providing an off-cycle during the middle of when we're running payroll for the semi-monthly. And so the agreement then was made that we would not run an off-cycle for those semi-monthly. If we, for instance, were to pay a $30, $40 check with the withholdings, it's very possible, and it taxes them on their entire monthly amount. When we do that, that check may be $5. So we are processing these we would be processing these off-cycle checks during the same time we were processing their actual payroll, their current payroll. So it is truly a systems timing issue that really causes the problem.
So I guess my question would be, why wouldn't they tax it as a percentage and not like a flat, so that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, number one. Number two, we're not talking about just general off-cycle checks. We are literally talking about when their supervisor or the district messes up their check. And so like even a $30 payment, I mean, for some paras and ESPs, and I'm sure it's the same for some of our AFSCME folks, that's half a day's pay for them. And so while $30 may not seem a lot to some, it's a lot to some of our support staff that live paycheck to paycheck. And so we're not talking about off-cycle checks because they didn't put their time in right, or, you know, it's on them. We're literally just talking about when it's an employer error, that they need to be made whole, you know, as soon as possible. And if that as soon as possible is the next off-cycle pay run, you know, that's where we're at. And when we had met with the payroll frequency committee, you know, this was all new to everybody. And we knew that when we came up with that agreement that in the first year, there probably was going to be some hiccups that we needed to work out. And we feel that this is a hiccup that needs to be worked out. And it didn't happen to anybody in our units, but I know it happened to some of our people in our AFSCME units. And that means that it could happen to somebody in our unit. And so we wanted to bring this up while we were talking salary and benefits this year, because it does affect their salary. And since we were amending that article anyway to include the semi-monthly payroll, it made sense to us to bring it to try to address that issue here. And so you're right, we did agree to that in the payroll frequency committee, and we hadn't seen what this looked like live yet. And we've had a year now where we've had the semi-monthly pay in place. And so this is an issue that we saw play out in real time. And I believe the AFSCME bus driver went like a month before she even got her pay, and she missed a whole check. And so, you know, we're talking, you know, on the off chance that it's $20, $30, but, you know, at the end of the day, if an employer if you guys make an error to somebody's check, it should be addressed, you know, as fast as possible. Because a lot of our folks do live paycheck to paycheck.
How often do you guys make payroll errors?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, we should. No, all right, not gonna do it.
And so that's what we were trying to address here, since we already had this article opened, because we had to bring the payroll frequency language up to date in all three contracts, because the payroll frequency MOU expires at the end of this year. And so we wanted to make sure that that language was changed in our contract to reflect our semi-monthly offerings and the parameters set forth in that. And since we've been dealing with semi-monthly and it's been live for now going into its second year, you know, while these articles were open, we wanted to address some of the issues that that are ASME folks, because this language would have to reflect what they're looking at too, because it would be a district-wide system. And so, and we know that it's very possible, we weren't brought to the attention that it happened in our units, not that it didn't happen, it just may not have been brought to the level of our attention. Maybe it was worked out, but I know that it was a problem with ASME because Lisa, their president, specifically talked to me about it. And so while this article was open, we wanted to address that issue. And I know we've talked about the leave of absence, because that was brought up in our units where we had folks returning from a charter leave, that they were starting back, you know, same day as teachers came back on pre-plan, that wanted to go semi-monthly. So we wanted, while these articles were open, we wanted to address these things in real time since they were open anyway.
We did check with payroll regarding that as well, and they're automatically go on semi-monthly unless it's a transfer. So what happens, the reason that we have our specific window, we have more detail on that for you too, is because it has to be touched by multiple departments. So risk management has to touch it. We have to make sure their benefits are correct. We have to report it to FRS. It requires a change in that. Personnel has to change them on their org chart and their pay scale.
Okay.
And then payroll also has to enter it. So that's why we have the dedicated time frame in the spring and why it's more complicated. So if they are on a leave with a charter and they come back, they're automatically on semi-monthly. However, if it's a transfer, we still need them to wait until our next open enrollment because of the complexity of the pieces.
So would that be the same then for if they're on a parental leave or a medical leave, or anything like that? If they're coming back, are they automatically then put on semi-monthly? Because then if that's the case, we probably need to state that somewhere in the leaves section.
I don't believe it pertains to the other pieces.
Okay.
Because the charter leaves are for a longer time frame. It's a
because they can renew it each year.
Yes.
Okay. So the other leaves are restricted to a year except for the charter. So specifically, if they're coming back from charter leave, then they would be placed on semi-monthly then.
Yes.
So is there a way to, even if they're on a leave of absence, that they could have access to selecting that they want to go semi-monthly for the next school year when they return?
I think that I did speak with Dana and one of the programmers about that, and I think the issue is they're inactive, so they're not actually an active employee until they come back, and then once that time frame starts, then we have to go through the whole process at that point.
Okay. Well, then I think with the leave of absence, I think we would be willing to discuss this further with you, maybe going into the open book to see and work with payroll and finance to see if there are some more specific things that we can do going into the open book, because we wouldn't be making any changes in the middle of the school year anyway at this point. So we would be agreeable to putting that language for the leaves of absence on hold until we can come into open book and maybe get some more specific situations fleshed out. But let's go back to the off-cycle pay then. Because I think that's probably actually real quick before we go to off-cycle pay, in para 1913, we did have the addition to the or degree related to position. Are you guys agreeable to that addition for our para educators?
We have no way to cost that, do we, Ms. Jenkins?
No, I don't. We would have to. Do we know how many people that applies to?
I mean, it's really going to, if you're looking at your categories of folks in the para educators, when we looked at this, it's most likely going to apply at least systemically to your LPNs, your OT-PT assistants, and your sign language interpreters, which there's only 4 sign language interpreters in the district right now. And there's not very many OTPT technicians either. Your biggest group of that are your LPNs. And so you generally have one at every school site, even though we don't have, I mean, I know you budget to have one at every school site. So you're probably talking 200 people, and that's the max. That's the
Would
max.
it be possible for you to write that out and to give that to us with the actual degrees that you want considered so that I can see if I can cost it out?
So
I don't understand this. I want to just kind of go back a little bit. I think, we've been talking a little bit here, at least in previous meetings, about the importance of recruiting and retainment. And this is an investment. This is really an investment in the workforce. And I think human resources is, I'm assuming, I'm going to make the assumption here, is fully equipped to evaluate education degree or degrees related to the position. For us to go through every single degree that we think maybe yes, maybe, I mean, that doesn't make any sense as far as I'm concerned. This is one of those items that really enhances the collective bargaining agreement and enhances the retainment, and maybe even the recruitment of some staff.
So what is the monetary change? I only have the ESP from our last session. I don't have 19 electronically. So can you tell me what the monetary change you're proposing is?
So the monetary change, and again, it depends on their hours, right? And so this would only pertain to, we have an existence already education degree program, and we would be proposing to add or degree related to position. So again, if you're talking about your paraeducators, your sign language interpreters, your LPNs, probably your OTPT folks, if it's 30 hours, semester hours, $500, 60 hours or an AAAS, it's $500, 90 hours, it's $700, and a BABS is $700. And so you're talking about those folks, because right now, unless they have an education degree, they don't have access to this, even though our sign language interpreters, our LPNs, our OTPTs, have degrees or semester hours towards what they actually do, and they don't get access to this supplement right now because they don't have an education degree. But having an education degree has nothing to do with their actual job position. And so this is kind of bringing this in line to be equitable for our folks that aren't education majors, that are providing services that support education but aren't education majors, like our nurses, our OTPT, and our sign language interpreter. And I'm a little frustrated right now because we've had this on the table since July 19th, and I'm a little frustrated because I thought that we were very close to being able to wrap this up today with just a few loose ends, and it just seems like we're spinning our wheels.
Stephanie, I recall our other changes from when we costed it out. But the degree supplements that we discussed at that point were different.
That's the teacher contract
teachers,
for master's, specialist, and doctorate programs. We're
Yes.
not. Yeah, we didn't want to talk teachers today because we were so close with really wrapping up paras and ESPs. And so, but this was brought at July 19th with Article 19 when we had went through our proposals then. I mean, in addition to all the teacher stuff as well.
Understood. It's not, I understand that I don't have it cost out though. It is not in our proposals that we talked about.
Yes, it is.
We did not
Okay.
discuss this at the table, to my recollection. We did discuss everything else in Article 19, but we would have costed it out had it been brought to our attention. I
think Stephanie began the meeting by reviewing the items that the parties agree were on the table, and you acknowledged that. So it's been there. So it's
this was part of our July 19th
Yeah.
proposal for Article 19.
Yeah. So So,
Well,
so I guess
this is
it's,
Tedra. This is Tedra. So it's 8/17, right? So we're less than a month out, and we still need to cost it out at this point. And I think that's what Heather is saying, is that we appreciate it, we'll look at it, and we'll go from there. I mean, at
So-
this point, we can go back and forth about what's on the table and what's not. But right now, we're saying that we've not done it. It's 8/17, so it's less than a month. And you're right, Stephanie, we had hoped to wrap it up as well. So absent this, if we want to move on, let's move on and get something done. If not, we can sit here and continue to talk about this.
All right, let's move on to Article 8 with the para subpay. The only change there is we want the 5025 that's in the MOU right now to be a permanent change. And that is in 8.2-8. And we already know that you're saving money still, because if you were to pay a Kelly sub to be in this position, you'd be paying them more. And so this makes sense, and we would like this to be a permanent change, and that's what we have proposed. So can we sign off on Article 8 today?
From a finance standpoint, we're fine with that.
Okay. Awesome. Tedra, are you in agreement?
Is Fred still there? Is Fred okay with it?
Yeah, no.
He is not with us.
And Heather and Jason, are you all okay with it?
I am. Stephanie does make the point that it is still more feasible or it's less expensive than paying Kelly subs, and they are our own employees, so it is affordable, and it does give back to the employee.
All right, so we can say that this
Jason,
is
are you
good to
okay?
go?
Yes, I'm okay. I was just reading the language one more time. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. I just want to make sure you all are in agreement because it does involve finances. Thank you. Yes, Stephanie.
Perfect. Okay, so I will mark down that this is a tentative agreement. We can all virtually sign. There you go. We're signed. Okay. Okay, awesome. And then the next thing are the supplements for the health contact and the Title I supplement for para and ESP. Both of those would be in their Appendix Cs. The para educators don't have a separate supplement appendix like the ESP and teachers do. So the para educator salary schedule, this would be added at the end of the salary schedule once we get that flushed out with the new alpha levels. And then in the ESP Appendix C, there's non-instructional supplements. And so the health contact would be $200, and the Title I supplement would be $200 for any ESP or para working in a Title I school.
So, and when we last met, the health contact supplement, we estimated to be $101,200.
And so I guess I had a question with that too, because we caught and calculated out that you had costed out like
Yeah.
14,000 people in the teacher one. Did you cost out every single ESP and every single para for this as well?
That's for both the paras and the ESPs.
Okay. Okay. So that sounds doable to us. And so is the district in agreement with the health contact supplement?
Can you, I think it's doable, but I have a question.
Okay.
Can you provide me with your definition for what the health contact supplement is? And the reason I'm thinking is I'm looking for funding sources. So,
and actually it's funny you talk about funding. I think because we were talking with Dr. Lutz today about some other things possibly coming down, and with health contacts, we could maybe even over the next couple of years pull it out of ESSER, depending on how we write this. But the health contact, what they do is they're the backup back up to the LPN on campus. for school needs.
Yes.
And so you have 2 or 3 folks that have to be designated health contacts in the event the LPN is not on campus or they're in a classroom. And so the health contact has to go into and do nurse duties. So they may have to dispense meds depending on what time of the day it is and what kid. They may have to, evaluate whatever. They're essentially the LPN on duty until the LPN is back. And so that's what the health contact is. And it's documented who it is. It's not some rando, person. Like they have to get training from Mark Wilcox to be a health contact. And so it would be the documented health contacts for each work site.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And most of the health contacts are usually our ESPs. That are in the front offices because it's easier for them to cover the nurse area. We've heard of the off, of it being a non-classroom teacher if they just don't have the staff, if it's a smaller school. But they generally tend to be our ESPs that cover the health contact.
Stephanie, it's Laura. Could I clarify, you're not wanting one ESP and one para per school. It's one or the other per school. Health contact.
No. What I'm saying is that you have to have like 2 or 3, and so it varies because we have this in the teacher contract too. Because there's off chances that a non-classroom teacher has been designated to be a health contact. You have to have I think it's at least 2 backups to the LPN. Like that's mandated that you have to have these health contacts trained. And so whatever unit they come from, whether it's ESP, para, teacher, whatever, if they're on the health contact list, they get this supplement. That's our intent here. So whoever the principal is usually in charge of that, unless they designate somebody else, you have to they have to turn in a paper that says, these are my 2 or 3 health contacts. These are the 2 or 3 people that have to go to Mark Wilcox or get trained to be a health contact. So it's documented, and it could be 2 ESPs. It could be an ESP and a para. It could be, depending on the school, you could have 3. It could be an ESP non-classroom teacher. But they have to have 2 to 3 health contacts per work site, per school.
That's about what we cost out.
So we're good with that supplement then?
Jason, are you good with it?
I'm good with it.
Perfect. All right. And so what about the Title I supplement? Because that's the last one on the para ESP.
How did you derive your amount, Stephanie?
So we did, I believe it was 500 for the teacher, because per statute, we should be having supplements for teachers that teach in Title I that are in critical shortage areas, and for grandfathered teachers that have highly effective ratings per that pay for performance statute. And so we know that Title I schools tend to have a heavier lift than non-Title I schools. And so that's felt in the support staff as well. And so since we had proposed the Title I supplement for teachers, we wanted to propose the Title I supplement for paras and ESPs. And so we made that 40% of what we had offered for the teachers.
From a funding standpoint, I do not believe that we will have the available Title I funds this year to cover this. We're going to have to look for another funding source because our grant is a little short.
So I know that with federally funded programs like Title I, for the time being, we can use ESSER dollars to spend with federally funded programs. And so would this be an appropriate use funding source?
I think the question is, Stephanie, though, what happens when what happens when the ESSER dollars run out? And then now we've committed to this and we still have the federal tab and our federal dollars are short again.
You can
Like what
strike the
happens there? And
language.
so we don't want to obviously not pay anybody. We don't want to not do it. And so I think that may be the hesitation that Heather is talking about.
But the remedy there, I think, is to, if that's the case, we already have a template that kind of gets us there. So we can come up with language that says, because Stephanie's correct, that if ESSER, as a hypo, ESSER funds runs out, and in addition to our Title I funding, quote unquote, is a little short, you know, again, we bargain every year, then we reconvene we relook at this stipend. It may go away, it may not. It may be less, it may not. I don't know. But the language is already there. That's what got us to yes with the language we recently agreed to. I forget what it was.
For the automatic steps.
Yes, the automatic steps.
Pay levels.
Yeah.
So I do agree that we need to look at the teachers because it is in statute. Would you be agreeable to looking at them first and maybe letting the Title I supplement for the paras, since we do have to address the teachers? Holding off on this one?
Let us talk about that as a team. Okay.
And let us touch base. We'll touch base with our federal grants department and I'll also see if we can get, this is one of the items that we were having difficulty costing out earlier, one of the highlighted ones.
Okay. And then the last thing that we had on our plate was to talk about with network manager, para network managers. And so I know we both have proposals on the table. And they're drastically different, except that we have wage improvements. So that is something that is in common, is that there is a wage improvement, but the way we're approaching it is very different. So how did you want to move forward with the para network manager positions? Is Dr. Barrios there? Or are we?
She's not. I did invite her to the meeting. I think she must have had another meeting planned. She was, though, concerned. She did not agree with your proposal at all. She didn't believe that it was fair or equitable. She thought, quite frankly, it was too high to bring everybody to 45 or 47, whatever that cost is. She did not like that at all. You know, essentially what she's saying is we need to bring the paras up and we need to make sure that the teachers are compensated. And so teachers will obviously be compensated at the 45,162. And so we're trying to figure out a way to make it so that our schools really get what they need. And essentially she saw your proposal as being too rich. I hate to say it that way, but I can't think of anything else. And so, especially for the job duties in which they're doing, they're not teaching, they're not doing any duties, you know, and so we have to be mindful of that and the inequity that that's going to create even on campus, you know. So at this point, I don't know that we're going to be able to agree because, quite frankly, we're so very far apart. Especially on the money part. And so if we want to just continue to let it go, then that's fine. But if we want to come up with something more reasonable, then that's okay. But I don't think, to be frank with you, I don't think we're going to get out of the 30s on a salary proposal for the network managers. And
so based
meaning
on our,
low 30s, not even high 30s. So
based on our numbers.
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, based on our numbers, we seem to be pretty split 50-50. We have about half of our network managers are teacher network managers, half of our network managers are para network managers, roughly. And so I don't think equity is the right word, because we can't run our schools without our network managers anymore. There's too much technology. They're responsible for too much stuff now. And so they aren't in the classroom, but we also can't do our job in the classroom without our network managers on campus. Our admin can't do their job without a functioning network and network manager to be on campus. And so half of our network managers are paid on the teacher schedule, and you're talking equity. It's not equitable that even by moving them to 28 and then having a 49 level salary schedule for them, which is craziness anyway. I mean, that's not equitable. They're doing the same exact job, and they are vital to the actual operation of our school. Our schools cannot operate if the network's down. Our schools cannot operate if there's not proper technology. Our students do not get the education that their parents are expecting them to get when we don't have proper network maintenance, proper technology, and those network managers do all of that. We can't test our kids now without proper technology and proper network managers. And if you're going to recruit and keep our network managers not going to the private sector to do the same stuff, then you're essentially stringing up our teachers' hands, and we can't do our job in the classroom without them. And so I think it's absurd that Dr. Barrios would even say that, because she knows how vital they are to our schools. And it makes more sense from an equity standpoint if half of your positions are already paid on the teacher salary grandfathered schedule just because of when they happen to become a network manager. It doesn't make a lot of sense to leave half of that position, that workforce in that position, still making 2/3 of what half of their colleagues are making for doing the exact same job.
I think, Tedra, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't part of the conversation that that we really need to restructure the position because it requires specific training for what the network managers are actually doing? So when it started, it may have been a little different than what it's evolved to now. And if we move them all to the teacher salary schedule, we're really getting away from what this position truly does by calling it or placing it on the teacher schedule.
And I can appreciate that perspective, right? Because honestly, I think going into open book, we need to look at having a fourth book anyway, because we have network managers, we have OTPT, we have our LPNs and our sign language interpreters, all of these people that provide either related services to students, or like with network managers, they provide assistance to schools and the operation of schools, but they don't really fit in any of the 3 contracts we currently have. And so, you know, I think as we move forward and we're looking at job positions and pay grades, which is what, you know, we are wanting to do moving ahead into this open book, coming into the spring, looking at different job positions and kind of doing an audit of what they actually do, moving pay grades if necessary, and all of that, that I think this is maybe a temporary fix, because honestly, I think the compensation is fair for the network managers, but they may just need to temporarily be moved into the teacher to get the pay they deserve for the job they do. And then as we're moving into open book, they may move into a different contract that is more aligned with their actual job description. But I think to do something and create something completely new, like what you guys have put across with the teacher net or with the parent network managers, doesn't make a lot of sense if we're going to be looking at job categories and classifications moving into the open book. And so these people do need a pay raise, a significant one, because these para educators right now that are doing the network manager job make 1/3 of what their teacher counterparts make. And just because they happen to have been in the teacher contract when this job was created. And so they were just there and the grandfathered in. And so to us, it makes sense to just move your parent network managers over. And then we do need to look at that job description, just like we need to look at our sign language interpreters, because we have some of the same disparities in our sign language interpreters, to where they have varying levels of certifications. You have some that have bachelor's and master's degrees that are being paid as a para, and some of them are on the lower level of getting their certification. Our LPNs, our center school paras, all of those job categories need to be looked at, and some of them are critical areas at this point, to where we need to address that, and network managers is one of them. We cannot run our schools without them. And so to us, it made sense to just move them to where their teacher counterparts are right now, knowing that we do need to address this, and potentially even address this with the fourth book if Mr. Hyde and your team are agreeable to talking about that, to have a professional, like a professional services contract book, because it makes sense. So that's where we stand with that. And so,
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to agree on this one at all. I think it's going to be, for us, it just does not make sense for us to pay people that don't have a degree $47,000 or $45,000 when that's our teacher salary. And I think it's really, and I'm not devaluing what they do. I think it's a slap in the face to those professionals and those teachers that really are in the classroom with kids and doing everything. And we've worked so hard to raise their salaries. And so from a true HR standpoint, I don't think we're going to agree on this. Again, as I said before, we're not out of the early 30s or the low 30s with this. And so for us to say that we would even be agreeable to 40-something thousand for a para network manager is absurd. So at this point, so if you want to come back with something a bit more reasonable, again, we are willing to go up to maybe 32, but no more than that for a para network manager. Again, these aren't degree people. These are people that have some experience with being a network manager. And you're right, Stephanie, I'm not disagreeing with the fact that, quite frankly, we saw the need prior to COVID for a network manager at every school. And at this point, we're just not comfortable agreeing to the 42. So that's what.
Did you know that you have para network managers? Did you know that you have para network managers that have master's degrees, that they just don't have a teaching certificate, so they're placed in the para contract? You talk about
we've looked at it. We've looked at it several times, and so, I mean, this is just kind of where we are, you know. So I don't really want to do the whole adversarial back and forth.
No, you're right. You're right.
Agreeing to disagree, and so I hear you, and that's kind of where we are with it. And so
I just got to put it out there just so that everyone is clear on this. And Cedric, correct me if I'm absolutely wrong on this, but I just want to make sure. So this is really more of you're rejecting our proposal because this is a principal position, right? These are non-degree folks. And the principle that I'm hearing, I should say, is that since they're non-degree, it doesn't make sense to us being the employer, that they make 40 or 47 or whatever that number would be. Is that somewhere in the ballpark? Is that about right?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little. What were you saying?
Is this a principal position that you've established? In other words, that because these folks, these employees are not, they don't have a college degree, right? That there's no way that we can look at least the employer will look at moving them over to the teacher contract where they'll earn 45 or 47, whatever the number would be. Because
no, it's not really a principal issue. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because when I mean by principle, I mean, look, we're just, the answer is no way, no how, because we just simply believe that this is a value, right? In other words, our value is that, if I heard you correctly, our teachers, they work hard, they get their college degrees, so they've earned their 47.5, et cetera. And these folks have not, since they're not credentialed, they don't have a college degree. Therefore, I mean, is that about right? Am I saying that?
No,
okay.
I don't necessarily think it's a college degree. I think, and I apologize, I wish I could speak more eloquently for Dr. Berrios, but based on what I understand, it's a number of things, not only the college degree, but it's just the skills, the training overall, the expertise overall. So yeah, we do have some good kind of trained, on the job trained network managers. But what we're asking is for a more specific training. We want them to be able to meet that job description and meet it well and be able to really run our networks well at the schools. And so it's more than just the college degree, but I think that is a factor.
But I think so that's why we perhaps need to hear from this person, because if taking everything you just said, if the parties can come up with that template that you just described, which is well said, by the way, then that would justify their movement over to the teacher contract or 40-something salary range. You see what I'm saying? So if the parties come up, or the employer, the parties come up with that sort of mechanism that you just stated, training and any updates, et cetera, they escape me. If that's the case, and that seems to be doable, then it wouldn't be an issue that they would be transferred over to the teacher contract or make 45, 47, whatever the story may be. That's what perhaps we need to.
If they were transferred over, they would have to actually have all the credentials and everything else. And so that's our issue with the job description that we proposed.
Yeah. Gotcha.
That is not a job description that is worth 45, whatever, 172, right? And so, we have to be mindful about that. And that's it. So we just have to be mindful about it. So that's where we are. If you want to propose a new job description. So yes, we are rejecting your salary proposal for the network managers of $45,172. We are wholly rejecting that. And also we're reproposing the salary schedule that we have, and then reproposing also the job description. And based on my understanding, I didn't think you had an issue with the job description, but maybe you all want to look at it and make it more aligned to what you believe is fair and equitable, and then we can go from there.
Okay, thank you. We'll get with our team and we'll discuss. That was what we had on the table. So with us not wrapping up today, I know we had the 25th reserved for para ESP or TSIA. We do need to meet for TSIA though. And I know that we keep kind of pushing that back, but we do need to start meeting for that. And so do we need a little bit more time for the para ESP stuff and maybe meet the week after to wrap up para ESP and then continue with the TSIA on the 25th? Would that be agreeable to your group, Heather?
That would be fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, but yeah, the TSIA, the fact is that we haven't received a significant portion of the information request. So we'll meet, but the conversation is going to float around basically the committee, some ground rules, that sort of thing, definition, some language. And the fact is that if I heard it correctly today, there's some costing out that needs to be happening on Heather's end, and getting some hard dates on when things can be done or do, that sort of thing, so that we can wrap up the para and ESP. So because there seems to be very little or nothing on the table right at this point when it comes to paras and ESPs.
Well, Fredo, I have two things on my list, and you can make sure I captured them both. The degree related to position. So that is the first. We said yes to the health contact supplement, and then the Title I supplement for the paras. And I just pulled up a list of our Title I schools. I'm going to get a list of positions for those and cost that out. Did I miss anything?
I think that's what I had on my list.
And then on our end, we have to have a conversation about the network managers and see where that fit in the scope of resolution. And there was something else.
We were going to talk about the Title I supplements, potentially moving them to open book. So that we're going to discuss.
She's going to cost it out.
But Heather's going to cost it out.
Right.
I am, so we can see where we're at.
It just feels like we're close to wrapping it up one more time. I mean, if we come prepared, it feels like we're close.
Well, let's leave the 25th like we have it for the ESP para. I'm sure we can get those two things by then.
Okay. Is there anything else Tedra, on your end, do you think we need to be doing on our end to get us there to come prepare, or as you say, have an intelligent conversation next time we meet?
No, not that I can think of right now. I'll be sure to send you an email or shoot Stephanie and the team an email if I think of something.
Okay.
Like you said, I think we're close. I think we just have a few loose ends to wrap up. So,
Okay.
Stephanie,
hopefully
did
we
you-
can get it done sooner than later.
Yes. Sorry, Laura, what were you
I'm
saying?
sorry, I interrupted. Did you have any comments on the greenhouse language?
Wait,
Did
hold on.
email-
I just saw the DA stuff. Hold on.
Kara 9, I emailed at 3 o'clock with the agenda.
Oh goodness. I just saw the agenda. I didn't even look at the other thing. Let us forward that over and then we can talk about that next week.
Okay.
Okay. And then so Heather, on your TSIA side, would it be you and JD and like Jason?
Yes.
Okay. So would you be able to get some dates?
We need to include somebody I think we should include someone from HR as well, because with
Okay.
the new piece of the grandfathered schedule and the calculations, just to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking off the top of my head. So whether that's Tedra or Tony or Laura, whoever, on their side, or in their department, not
I
finance.
think you meant personnel, right, Heather?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so like Paula.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So if we could maybe exchange some dates, Wilfredo and I will talk with Angela and our teachers. We'll get some dates, and if we can maybe get something for maybe the week of the 30th, before Labor Day weekend, to where we can meet with the TSIA. If you can look at your calendars for the week of the 30th, so that we can have that solidified.
I can do, me personally, anytime Monday. Wednesday.
Can I make a suggestion? Because we're looking at other people's calendars and we have Paula involved. I don't have a calendar right
Me.
now.
Yeah.
What I'd rather do is if you send us some dates, Stephanie, and then
Okay.
that you're available, you and your team are available, and then that way we can go ahead and as a team decide what dates are available from us and then go from there. But I think generally we do agree that that week of the 30th is a good week for everybody, but I just want to, I would rather kind of do it that way. So then we're all more cohesive.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll get with our folks that are on that are going to be on that committee, and then we'll get you some dates tomorrow.
And just shoot us maybe 3 dates, 3
Okay.
or 4 possible dates that y'all are available. And then that way we'll have some room to play if, one person isn't available and maybe somebody is available on another date.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. All right, we'll get those to you by tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you guys. So we'll meet you through Teams again on the 25th for Para ESP, and then we'll see you on the 26th for Ask Me Healthcare.
All right.
Okay.
Got it. Y'all have a good
Right.
one. Take care.
Have a good
Thank you.
have a good evening.
You too.
Wear a mask, everybody. Be safe.
Yes.
Goodbye.